Um, Good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to see all of you. And, you know, this whole thing just kind of keeps changing and emerging and changing and emerging. And so our challenge then is to really figure out how we can respond to the COVID-19 situation and a number of the decisions that are being made statewide. Certainly, our governor, has been incredibly connected, active in leading us through this COVID-19 situation, and that's been incredibly helpful. We do anticipate sometime soon guidance from the governor's task force on county fairs relative to his recommendations for county fairs. We're actually rather anxious to see that guidance because it impacts some of the work that we will be asked to do at our county fairs. We also know, and let me just
Okay, thanks.
share my screen with you. If you haven't spent time on the DHH website, I really encourage you to do so. This map for me is the most important map. The white uncolored counties, there are 24 of those counties. Those are the 24 counties in Nebraska that have not had a diagnosed case of COVID-19. And I put it that way because all of these counties are doing testing, at least at some degree. But it's possible that there are positive COVID-19 cases in these counties that have not been discovered. I think that's true across the state, actually. But the point is, as of today, I'm sorry, yesterday afternoon at 5:55, there were no diagnosed cases in those 24 counties. Of those 24 counties, we have 14 extension offices in those 24. So as we begin to look forward to June, what I talked about on Tuesday, the idea that some of our county offices will be authorized for us to return to. By the way, I'm not using the word reopen anymore because I was gently and politely reminded that most of our county offices have not closed. Our county employees are still working in those offices. The office has remained open. They have carried on without us, in partnership with us and in communication with us, but without our physical presence. Anyway, the point is that in those 14 offices represented by many of those uncolored counties, I think there's a reasonable chance that you will be given the green light to go back to the office sometime in June. And so I saw Jenny a minute ago, Sioux County, you're in there, Sheridan, Garden, Dual, coming across the state. And so we want you to be very seriously planning for that return to your office sometime in June. We do expect an announcement from Chancellor Green sometime in the next 10 days or so that will, we anticipate, give us the authority to reopen, I said it, to go back to our county offices on a county by county decision sometime in June. And so I just want you to seriously prepare for that. And there's a lot of things that we need to do to get ready for that. Dave and Ashley and their task force are putting together guidance documents for you that will help you think about the various pieces that you need to think about and take action on. And so those will be forthcoming soon. We also had an opportunity yesterday to meet with Shelley Schwedhelm. Shelley works in the biocontainment unit at the University of Nebraska Med Center, Nebraska Medicine, and was part of the early effort when we had Ebola cases coming from Africa back to the U.S. and those people were placed in the biocontainment unit at the Med Center, and Shelley was part of that. The other reason that we really are excited about working with Shelley is that Jennifer, she is a 4-H alum from Pender Thurston area. And so, you know, when I first talked to her on Tuesday afternoon, she started out with the 4-H pledge, and I'm going, this is going to be good, right? But the point is, so Shelley met with our extension leadership team yesterday. We've invited her to an upcoming chat with Chuck. She knows, she has expertise in the kinds of things that we need to be doing and thinking about as we return to our county offices, as we think about the practice of an in-person 4-H event at a county fair, those kinds of things. And so she's informing the work that Dave and Ashley are doing, but she is also going to provide direct interaction with all of you on an upcoming chat with Chuck. So that's the case for the 24 counties in white. If you look at the next set of counties that are kind of a light tan color, those are the counties that have 10 or fewer diagnosed COVID-19 cases. And there are 35 of those counties. And in those 35 counties, we have 33 extension offices. So my guess is, and again, just to ask you to be very serious about this idea of how we work to get ready to return to the office. That's a total of 47 extension offices out of our 83 that are either in the white or the light tan colored counties. 59 total counties, 47 total extension offices. We're not sure exactly how this might be done. We might ask, for example, 5 counties who would be willing to do this first and help us learn from you. And then the others come online shortly after that, maybe a week later or something. So we haven't talked about exactly how to do that. But I think the point is that we, and I'll stop saying this, so you can plan on this, and that is, you need to get ready. You need to do this planning. You need to figure out how this is going to happen. So what we're looking at on this map are the total cases that have been identified in a county. To the questions in the chat, these are the total cases, not the current cases or recovered cases. These are the total cases. And as you can imagine, if you do go to this, you know, the numbers are staggering as you go across this state. So when you click on Hall County, Grand Island, for example, 1,441 positive cases, 39 deaths. You know, I don't see Hall County reopening anytime soon, just to be honest. And that would be true for several other counties across Nebraska. But one of the things we do want you to know and think about is that we're going to use data, right? We're going to use data. For example, from this source, we are also going to work with our district health departments and our engagement zone coordinators, and some of you who have those relationships with our district health departments, their guidelines, which, by the way, their guidelines are all the same right now because we're following Governor Ricketts' directed health measures for the state. Those end in at the end of May 31st. And so what happens in June, those decisions may go back to the district health departments, or the governor may issue another directed health measure for the entire state. So we don't know exactly what that looks like, but we're going to stay on top of that. So the point is, either the statewide directed health measures, or when the time comes to go back to the district health departments and their health measures, we will use their recommendations combined with the information on this map, combined with the latest courthouse status to help us make a decision on which counties on a map that Mike Reese is creating, which counties will be coded green. And those are the counties that will be a signal to you that you are authorized to re-enter those counties at some point. And we'll figure out what that some point needs to look at. So I'm going to pause there for a few minutes. We do want to transition because I think the next obvious question is, once we re-enter our county offices, and especially in those counties that are white or those counties that are light tan, assuming the county fair does continue in some form or fashion, what is our role and responsibility for the 4-H program at those county fairs? So we're going to go there in a minute, but I want to pause and ask if you have questions or comments relative to this idea of re-entering our county offices, what the guidance will be, any of those kind of questions. So please type in the chat or speak up. We'd like to hear what your questions might be or concerns.
One of the questions I would have for staff members that maybe have underlying health conditions, like what kind of guidance do you want to give us on that? Because, you know, you don't want to bring someone back too soon when it could jeopardize their health. So kind of, do you have any thoughts on that?
Absolutely, Jennifer. And I think there's two groups that we are really thinking about and trying to figure out how to work with you. And that certainly is any employee that has an underlying health condition. The other is, you know, parents that have kids and maybe you don't have access to childcare. And so we don't want to put you in a difficult situation either, if that is your situation. So we don't have answers for those at this point. I think one of the things that when you have an opportunity to interact with Shelley Schweedhelm, I know for me, I was really comforted by the idea that if we put these sanitation practices, physical distancing practices, if we, the physical barriers like the plexiglass windows and things like that, if we do those things, we greatly reduce our risk. And so whether you are a person with underlying health conditions or not, I want you to have some confidence that if we do this well, and I think we can make that choice because we can control quite a bit of this, maybe not everything, but we can control quite a bit of this, that we can feel pretty confident that we're safe and that the risk of returning to our offices is minimal. So more to come on that, Jennifer. It's absolutely the right question. We don't want to create uncertainty or fear on the part of our employees by asking them to go back to their office.
And I have a follow-up on that. Sorry. Yeah. Just
Sure.
Quick follow-up on that. What if the employee with underlying health issues is a county-funded employee? Because that's a different path to navigate. So would there be guidance in helping us have those conversations with county boards as well?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Realizing that it is not our decision, but to your point, Jennifer, and I think that's the key in all of this, is we just have to make sure that the lines of communication are open, and if there are issues or questions or concerns, that we have the opportunity to hear those and address those. So absolutely, we can provide some guidance.
So Chuck, Ron Seymour here. So at this point, the directive is to not be, no university employee to be in an office. Before that, it would seem like it was an option, whether you work from home or work from your office. When we go back to offices, is it optional to work from home or work from the office, or is there more of an expectation that we will be working from offices?
Yep. So it's a great question, Ron, and I can't give you a black and white answer right now. Today, we're still in what the university calls level 4, which means that we are to be working remotely unless we have a letter from our chancellor saying that we can go to our office. So we are not to be in our county offices right now. So then the question is, do we go back to the mode? We were at level 3 for a while. Level 3 said you were to work remotely if you can. Level 2 means that we go back to work at our office and practice those good health measures that protect us. So I think what will likely happen is that in June, for the white counties and perhaps the light tan counties, that we will be back in level 2. We're going to ask you to return to your office and practice good health measures, etc. one of the things that I think is going to be really interesting about this entire conversation is that we have demonstrated that we can do effective extension work remotely, right? So does that mean we all have to go back to the office every day? Or if we have a project that we're working on that would benefit from having the opportunity to work from home, I think we are going to consider more flexibility in doing that kind of work in the future. So do you all have to go back? Yes, I think that is the expectation, but does that mean you have to be in the office every day? Not necessarily. So more to come on that thinking. But yes, I think the point is that for the white and light tan, light yellow colored counties, that probably is back to level 2. So, you know, authorized, expected to go back to the office with the circumstances that Jennifer brought up earlier as a consideration, but expected to go back to the office.
Thank you for that conversation.
Yeah.
Chuck, this is Lee Sherry. We had a conversation yesterday at our Zoom staff meeting, and will they be allowed to continue to use administrative leave if they haven't used it up once we go back to level 2?
And Lee, I think the answer to that is yes, but I don't have a definitive answer. So let me confirm that. I have
Okay.
not heard that there's an end date to use administrative leave, but I will confirm that and let everybody know.
Okay, thank you.
It's a great question. Thanks, Lee.
Hey, Chuck, this is Mike Eskelson. What happens if, you know, we open up, and what is the plan if someone came into the office that was later confirmed, or someone
Right.
from the office got it?
Right. So great question. And the guidance that Dave and company are preparing will give you some guidance on that. You know, that's one of the big concerns that we have. Actually, 2 perspectives. One is a perspective that you just shared. What if somebody comes into the office and has it? Shelley gave us some really good advice on how to manage that. And so, for example, maybe you set up a system where somebody comes to the office door. They can't come in until you allow them to come in. You know, they have to ring a bell or get your attention or something. Not every office will be physically, you may not be able to physically do that in your office, but the point is, if you can do that, maybe that's a strategy. I know that some of our offices have ADA doors on the front of the office, and it's possible that you can take the bumper switch off that ADA door and put it back on your receptionist desk, and they would actually have to press that button before the door would open. So what I'm suggesting is that you think about all of those kinds of options that you may or may not have to try to manage inflow into your office. You can also have a stack of masks, because that will be one of our recommendations, is that everyone is masked, everyone. And so while you're in the office, unless you have your own cubicle where you can close the door, then you can take your mask off. Otherwise, if you're out in the open office area, we want you all to be masked. And that includes the county employees as well. And a pile of masks by the door, by the front door. So when people come in, if they're not masked, they're asked to mask before they come in, or that they choose not to come in. And then we provide signage that relays that, as well as phone numbers that they can call, as well as a drop box where they can drop things off. So just providing all of those kinds of alternatives that allow us to manage that. The directed health measures also do stipulate if you feel like you've been exposed, what you're supposed to do. And so there, you know, we would recommend that you take your temperature every day. And as long as you feel okay and you practice good health measures, you can probably come back to work. But the minute you exhibit some kind of symptom, then you're automatically home quarantined for at least 14 days. So again, those kinds of things, we'll spell that out so you know exactly what the guidance is. We've been asked, is this guidance or policy? Well, we're gonna propose it as guidance, but the reality is if people choose not to follow it, they're going to put themselves and their coworkers at risk. So, you know, we're asking everybody to follow this. So a lot of questions in the chat. I'm not going to be able to get to all of those, but we will download these and we will respond to these. I'd like to shift gears to our role in the county fair. And we do have Kathleen with us, as well as our 4-H coordinators. And if you have been engaging with them, you know that they have been very, very committed to trying to help us figure this out. And so to me, obviously, in the 59 counties that are either white or light tan, there's a pretty good chance that there will be an in-person county fair. I think the governor's recommendations will moderate exactly what that county fair looks like, but I don't know that for a fact, so we'll have to wait and see for that. But the point is, and the thing that we want to talk about today is that we want every 4-H youth in Nebraska to have access to a 4-H event that is either in person at their county fair or virtually presented and coordinated by us, so that either way they have the opportunity to participate in a 4-H event. So that's the baseline message. We're preparing a news release to that effect. Mike Boehm has an audience with the World Herald editorial board today. If that comes up, that will be the message. So our job is to figure out what that means. So I'd like to turn it over to Kathleen and her team to give us an update on their plans, where they're at in this process of thinking about our commitment to every 4-H youth having access to a 4-H event, either in person or virtually in Nebraska. So Kathleen, it's all yours.
Fantastic. Thanks, everybody. And I'll take the lead on this, but we certainly have our 4-H coordinators. Maria Walker is on today, as is Ashley Benish. We've got Jill Lingard on as well, and Katie Pleskotch, who takes care of the data management. So I think we can answer lots of questions. First off, just to follow up on Chuck's comment, is 4-H going to be present at county fairs when they're happening this summer? The answer is absolutely. We are committed to giving 4-Hers an experience in celebrating the work that they've done all year. It's going to look different county to county. And we've been talking about that over the last 12 months, and we'll reinforce that and answer some questions today. What I'm going to do is share my screen, because lots of the information that you can use around this is on this website. So you should all be seeing a screen now that says Employee Virtual Project Judging. This is probably the best go-to place for this information, and it's being updated minute by minute. In fact, we updated it just this morning, so this is a good place for you to take a look. What this really has is sort of the outline for our staff. This is an employee page, okay? We'll be having a public site too, but this is the employee site that really looks at the process by which we decide what needs to happen at the county fair, given where we're at, given the COVID status, all of those kinds of things. So you saw the map before that Chuck shared. Okay, based on where you're at in that map, things could look different. Some of the things that we know that we need to do right away are work closely with our county fair boards or ag societies and our local 4-H council. These are not decisions that can be made in solo, but rather it needs to be a partnership. So one of the first steps we're asking our 4-H educators to do, and you can help support this, is reach out to those ag societies and fair boards. What are the options? What are the things we need to be thinking about? What are the health department guidelines? What is the governor saying? So base it on those individual needs and what's happening in your county. And then based on what that local need is, what should the follow-up be? We've got some options that we'll talk about, but coming together in agreement on what needs to happen is the best case there. So it's not one side versus the other. We are all in this together, and more than ever, we need to be on the same page. The cool thing about this, for those of you who are innovative and design thinkers, and I know that is many of you, and certainly almost all of our 4-H staff as well, this is the time to do really cool and fun things. We have been hearing wonderfully cool and creative ideas, and we're encouraging counties to try things, and we'll all learn from each other along the way. There's also some pieces that are available nationally, like, for example, the piece that's up there that you can link to is from the International Association of Fairs and Expositions. We are not the only people who are talking about this, folks. Every county in the country is talking about this. So we're all learning from each other. We're in constant communication with program leaders from certainly across the North Central region and across the country, sharing best practices, sharing the kinds of things that are working, the kinds of things that aren't, and coming up with some opportunities. So we also have some pieces next that talk about how to have that conversation, because we know that for many, this conversation can be a little bit uncomfortable. One of the things that we've been finding out very clearly in this process is there is a passion for fairs. Now, we all knew that, but it's coming out even more robustly during this time, because people are concerned and they want something that's normal. And taking a county fair away or changing a county fair makes things look different, and there's frustration and angst around that. So we get it. These are hard conversations and important conversations. So we start the conversation with gratitude. As you all know, we are guests at county fairs. And we work with them to do what is best for that community and for that county, but we certainly are the guests, and we really appreciate their support. And the other piece that we're firm about is that we're about helping young people be successful, and we will help do whatever it takes to make that happen. But that's one of the core values that we go back to. What does it take to help young people be successful in the long run? And then do our decisions reflect that, and how can we ensure that they do? Some things that we know, and this is already stated, we try to make that decision 6 weeks prior. Some counties are interested in making that a little further out. For the 4-H section, we're recommending going too much beyond that 6 weeks. There's a lot of pieces we just don't know. So it's a guideline, not a hard and fast rule, but that's what we think about. Following the local health department guidelines is a hard and fast rule. We will not deviate from those. And we will also follow the governor's guidelines. Now, another thing that we know is that the governor will be giving recommendations around county fairs, and another piece around livestock shows at county fairs. We don't know exactly when that'll come out. We're hoping it comes out soon, but that's in the governor's office right now. 4-H was represented on that committee. I served on that committee. Someone from FFA served on that committee, as well as representatives from the health departments, representatives from the governor's office, and from the Department of Ag. So that's where that's coming. The next piece is probably the piece that concerns some of you most, or that you need to be thinking about. We've got some options. So the fair could be face-to-face, and in some of the counties that are on the map that are white, it may go on as it has in the past with some social distancing, but there may be a real face-to-face event. In other counties, there might be some blended model where some will be face-to-face, some will be virtual. And then there might be some counties where it's completely virtual. So what we've actually done, and I'm going to scroll here to the top of the page and on the right-hand side, is we've had a lot of conversations about this already. And on that right-hand side, if you start at the bottom and go up, actually, you can kind of see these in order. We started with what virtual judging and shows might look like. And then we went to a demonstration on FairVault, which is actually a platform for doing virtual shows and exhibits, and how you can enter data, and 4-Hers can enter the videos or pictures of their exhibits on that platform. There's other ways to do that as well, and this talks about that. We had a great conversation about what virtual livestock shows could look like and what small animal shows could look like. And then we talked about what face-to-face delivery could look like in a blended kind of model. And then we had another one on virtual static exhibits just this past week. We have more coming, but that kind of gives you an idea, and those are the recordings from those, so you can see that conversation. And your 4-H educators have been on most of those. Just some questions, and I'm just gonna, you can read this, so I'm not gonna go through all of it, but we've come up with just some things to be thinking about as you're hosting those events, be they face-to-face, be they virtual. You know, who's responsible for what? Clear communication is important. How can you bring in volunteers to this process? How are families going to get excited about this? What are we going to do to get our families into the loop? And how can young people be involved in making some of these decisions? How does the 4-H council involved? What are our expectations of them? So it's just some questions as we go through the process that can help us better outline what needs to happen. Just some logistic pieces that come up. What kinds of judges are we going to need? Will these be the same judges that we've had before? Are our volunteers going to be comfortable with this? If not, how can we get additional volunteers? Just taking care of the nuts and bolts of running a fair could be a different look of a fair. And then what we have next is the different events. And it kind of just gives you for each of these, what are the platforms that you can use? What might those projects look like? We've got some examples of video guidelines for breeding projects, exhibitor guidelines, animal guidelines. I will say I cannot give enough credit to our animal science department on these. They have come up and just been great advocates, great leaders, really making this happen. We are pretty excited about showmanship too, because we are offering some new pieces around showmanship that we think might be some of the only kind in the nation, where we're giving kids some opportunities that they may not have had in the past, or answering questions as being an advocate for that species. So the details are about ready to go up on that. We're also putting up some examples of each of these. So you kind of get what that looks like. If we go down here a little bit farther, we can look at horse. We are also putting together a platform for a virtual horse show. So counties can do that if they need to. So you've got some pieces around that. We got some guidelines there. So there's just lots of information here that's being developed. We've got the same thing for poultry, for rabbits, for dog, for static. Again, goes through the options. You know, and we're talking, this may look different where you're at. So one example we're talking about for static is that if young people, maybe you're in one of the lightly yellow counties, maybe we do a drive-by judging of some kind. So the young person comes to the event, they get out of their car, the judge is socially distanced, the 4-H'er talks about their exhibit for a minute or whatever time frame we've got. The judge never touches the exhibit at all. And they just do more of a judging of the young person in their presentation of the exhibit. So there's going to be all kinds of different scenarios of all this, and a pretty fun time to engage some people that might not have been engaged before. We think that the virtual show will actually do that in some cases. I might not be able to bring my bucket calf or my steer to the county fair for lots of reasons. This gives me a chance to showcase that exhibit. I'd also encourage you, this is the page that also changes almost daily. We've got an FAQ page, and I'm not going to go through those, but take a look. There's lots of different scenarios, lots of kinds of things that are going on, just some logistical questions, and we keep adding to that list as we go. So this is probably the best place to get information, and certainly our 4-H coordinators and any of our state 4-H team is also available to help answer these questions. I'm just going to go next to our 4-H coordinators, Maria, Ashley, Jill, or Katie, anything that we've missed?
Yeah, Kathleen, I think that was a good overview of what we've shared. Just know that I am working on more resources for Fair Vaults as questions come in and things like that. Those help sheets and instructions I'll flesh out a little further. But there is a cost to Fair Vault. We did cover that. So that's something also to consider. We did cover how counties could set up a box system to collect those entries and things. But Fair Vault, I think, offers the most seamless transition with judging and then importing results for your papers and your premiums and things like that. So there is a cost to that, but we might be able to think of some creative ways to help you fund that. Your area foundations, your community groups, things like that might be willing to help with that.
Ashley, Maria, Jill, or Jill?
I think that's a great overview, Kathleen, and thanks, Katie. I would just add that we are daily working through options with counties and sometimes even as a whole zone to have conversations, and we'll continue to do that. We know as more information comes out, there also becomes more questions, and so we're always happy to either meet with county staff or even get on 4-H council meetings, which we're doing. So we're here to help walk through step by step with the decision-making process.
Yeah, I would add to that. We've had a series of calls really unpacking these plans with our staff, and those have been really insightful. I think ideas are coming out of those every time we have them, and we're continuing to add and build this out. So certainly our colleagues are learning from each other, but we'll continue to have those discussions, as Ashley mentioned.
So questions from all of you. I'll stop sharing my screen now so we can take questions. There's a question, is there a way to prepay FairVault when looking at the end of the fiscal year? Katie, I don't know if we know that yet or not.
No, there's not, because it's based on the number of entries and things. So for the fee that it costs, the upload is 80 cents for anything you upload altogether. So if you are asking the kids to upload a picture, a video, and a PDF, that is all covered by the 80 cents that it costs. You also do have to.
And Katie.
Yeah.
I know that you, for your fair, estimated how much the FairVault cost would be. And what was that?
It was around $1,800 just for FairVault, but that was if every entry showed up and everybody uploaded something. So I just took a broad look at it. You also do have to do online entry with ShowWorks, which also might be a good thing to jump into this year with people not comfortable coming to the office or wanting to do that process differently. So that's something, I am more than willing to talk through with counties if they need some more information, or if the engagement zone coordinators need some more information on how that works. Just drop me an email and we can set up a time to chat.
So if I could jump in here real quickly, thanks, Kathleen. So to make sure that there are no financial barriers to using FairVault and this virtual 4-H experience, we are going to cover all of those costs at the state level. If you have local resources and you would like to cover it, great. We would appreciate it. But we do have enough cash reserves that we will cover the cost of FairVault. So no, we don't want that to be a barrier.
That's very gracious, Chuck. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chuck, for that.
So Chuck and Kathleen.
Go ahead.
Sorry. So Chuck and Kathleen, this is Randy Sainer. We have 2 counties that are in white. Then Lincoln County is in not the yellow, but the next color over. I could see us having live in those 2 white counties, but Lincoln County is going to have a fit if we have a virtual fair there. Do you think it might be a chance we open up for Lincoln County with that 3rd tier or not?
So Randy, I think it really, it depends on to what extent we've actually been able to flatten the curve. If you go back to, and let me just share this again to help illustrate my point. If you look in the lower left-hand corner, these are the number of new positive cases by date across Nebraska. And as you can see, for about the last 10 days or so, it actually looks like we're declining, right? Now, the medical professionals are not ready right now to say that we've peaked. What they are saying is that it looks like we've leveled off. So I think the real point, and I think the answer to your question is that if we continue to level off and hopefully decline, and if Lincoln County, right now you have 46 tested positives, and so looking at that probably on a weekly basis, if Lincoln County really drops down and gets to a point where we feel like the risk is manageable, I think it's possible that some of those counties that are in kind of that next color, that you might be authorized to go back to work and to be involved directly with an in-person county fair. So I don't know how many times I said if in my response to you. I think there's a lot of ifs yet at this point. But I guess my point, and this is the hard part for all of us, right? We'd like a black and white answer. We'd like to know what's the deal, right? We'd like to know that. I am not totally comfortable with us being this uncertain about our future, but the reality is that the behavior of the people in Lincoln County and every other county across this state, the choices that they make, those choices are going to dictate what happens in the future. And I don't know when the Lincoln County Fair is scheduled to be. If it's later July, for example, I think there's still a chance that you would have an in-person 4-H event at the Lincoln County Fair. So if we can just be, try to be patient, to plan, that's why we're asking you to plan as if there would be, okay, July 20th. So you may have some options there. You know, if we can plan, and I would encourage you to plan for both an in-person and a virtual. And at some point, you and in partnership with the 4-H Council and your Fair Board Ag Society, at some point you are going to have to decide. But when you get to that point where you do have to make a decision, you plan for both options and you can implement either option.
Other questions that people have?
This is Karen. I'm going to ask Chuck, do you have, and by the way, I need to explain the flag behind me. We had a patriotic theme to our staff check-in this morning. And so I forgot it was up there until I got on this call again. And it's like, yeah, no political messaging here, just a patriotic theme for Memorial Day. Anyway, Chuck, is there a cap on the amount for the Fair Vault? Because obviously, last year we had a little bit over 5,000 entries. Not that we would have that again, but we have a fair or an Ag Society meeting tonight that Tracy and I will attend. So just wanted to kind of check at this point on that.
So there's not a cap at this point. I took 140,000 4-H youth in Nebraska times 0.8. We can handle that number. That's 112,000. We can handle that number. I guess, Kathleen, maybe the question is, and this is again part of the management decision tree that you're going to need to consider. Are we going to allow 4-H youth to have multiple entries, which would potentially increase some of those costs, or to help us just manage through this, are we going to have to think about limiting the number of entries per youth?
So Chuck, at this point, we hadn't been limiting the number of entries at the county level. We know at the state level down the road, because of the cost and just because of the space that we may have or may not have, that we might not be able to have all the entries that we've had in the past and put some heavier quotas on. At the county level, we have not done that to this point.
Yeah.
But it's something to think about, because the other thing to think about that some people don't, even though the fair is virtual, there are still costs. Like there's the Fair Vault cost. You're still going to have to pay judges. Just because they're virtual doesn't mean you don't have to pay them. And so all of those pieces are still a part of that. Another conversation we're encouraging your educators to have with those extension boards, if they don't have the rest of the fair, or if they only have parts of the rest of the fair, like some counties want to do 4-H and youth shows only. Fantastic. We appreciate that support of young people. There are still those costs, and they may not be getting the revenue that they expected. So they need to be realistic about that. So like they may not be getting the money from the concerts or from the vendors or wherever else they get that money. They still have some of the tax base, but they don't have the other revenue. and there's still a cost. So I know that in Butler County, we went and looked at what that cost would probably be for the fair with the judges, with the awards and all of that. And we're probably in that, 4,000-ish look, give or take a bit. And so that's the cost of having that. That had Fair Vault, that had the judges, et cetera. But so it's not free. And if I don't have any revenue coming into my county, then I have to be thinking about that cost. Does that make sense to people? And it's just being transparent.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Katie, let's clarify, is the 80 cents per youth or per exhibit?
Per exhibit.
Okay, so there's your answer. That's, so we are not an unlimitless bank, Karen, relative to what we can support there. But we certainly want to support at least one exhibit per youth, and likely can do much more than that.
Yeah, thanks for that clarification. I think the Ag Society here is willing to pay some, but I just didn't know if they get word that that the university is paying something. I just want to be prepared for all scenarios.
Yeah.
So we also know that that's a pretty good donor option, and we get money is tight. In fact, we know that many counties livestock auctions and other things because resources are tight this year. That being said, we also know that Give Omaha yesterday had more money given than they have in the last 3 years. So we're Nebraska and we're supporting people. So that's very cool. But what we do know is it's a pretty cool opportunity for a local business, right? It's not a huge cost. And for, a couple $1,000s, if you have a couple businesses go together to say we supported all the young people in our county and they're exhibiting and their opportunity to have something normal at their county fair, that's not a bad message for them. There's a question from Rob Irick about, will there be discussion with local health districts on some of the decisions? So that needs to happen locally, right? Like we can also keep the health districts informed, but the health districts are local in our state and they meet daily actually to come up with what's going on and the new things that are happening. So we anticipate that those conversations with each of you, I know the engagement zone coordinators are talking with their health departments as well. Keep those lines open. If you have not been in contact with your health department ever before, now is certainly the time, like today. Yep, lots of them are waiting for those governor task force recommendations. Agreed, we've heard that. And that's out of our control. Other questions?
Kathleen, I think I'm going to switch gears. Yes, keep typing questions in the chat, and we'll pause for a minute after this next section. But thank you, Kathleen, to you and your team. I think the commitment to helping us prepare for this, think about how it would actually work. We all just need to dig in now and sort this out and think about what our options are and to get ready. There was also a question earlier, is for especially new unit leaders, are we going to get some help in navigating all of this? And the answer is absolutely yes. We are asking our engagement zone coordinators to work closely with you as you think about how you set up your office for you to re-enter and the kinds of health practices that we would prefer be implemented. You are encouraged to work with your engagement zone coordinator to sort that out. And then the other thing, there were some comments about buying PPE, personal protective equipment, and it looks like you can get masks at least more reasonably on Amazon now, so that's an option. If you do not have local financial resources to purchase PPE, we will help you with that. Again, not an endless budget supply, but we will help you with that. So let us know if you need our help. You also know, I think, that Ashley Mueller has submitted a PPE request list from our counties across the state. That was a kind of a range finding exercise. I would encourage you to not expect a delivery of that PPE order. We're encouraging you to purchase PPE locally get it on hand, get your supply build up so you're ready for that reentry when it happens. What I wanted to bring up is that one of our state senators has sent a message to all of our counties, all of our county clerks. And the first thing that I'm going to call attention to, if you have received this message, is the confidentiality notice at the bottom. And it simply says, this communication may not be forwarded or shared without the express permission of this individual. So please do not forward this message to anyone. Okay, that's as close to an order as I've ever given anybody. Okay, please just don't do that. But what's important about this message, the first time I read it, I was really alarmed. And then I read it again. And then I took a walk, and then I read it again. And then okay, I'm guilty. I shared it with Ronnie Green and Mike Bain. And Ronnie and I had a conversation last night. And Ronnie said, you know, most of what is said in that message is not exactly incorrect, right? That extension is absolutely involved in our county fairs. He says several county fairs have contacted his office about the issue, and that according to the chancellor, extension is supposed to help promote and work with local officials in any way they decide helpful on the local level. True, that's true. That's our job, right? We work with local officials to help, you know, in a variety of different ways, including the county fair. The next statement is also correct. The extension office is not to be the one deciding what takes place in your county. That's the County Fair Board Ag Society decision. Now, how the 4-H show will actually be, the 4-H events will actually be delivered at your county fair, that is our decision. That is our decision. Now, what I'm going to ask you to be very, very cautious about is how you say that, right? Because if you walk into a fair board meeting and say, we're not going to have a 4-H event at your county fair, that's our decision, you're probably going to get ridden out of town on a rail. So we have to be very, very thoughtful about how we have these conversations. And so that's why I think it's important. And Randy, to your question earlier, that now that you are having these conversations, or your 4-H educators having these conversations with your 4-H council especially, but also with your Fair Board Ag Society, let's keep our options open. Let's be thinking about the alternatives. And Randy's right. If an adjoining county is having an in-person 4-H event at their county fair, and because of COVID-19 cases, your county is not, that's tough. I mean, that's going to be hard for some people to accept, and some people are going to be upset about that. So that's why I'm encouraging you to begin having these conversations sooner than later. And the conversation today is not, are we or are we not going to have an in-person event? The conversation today is, we need to plan for the alternatives, so when it comes to the time where we really do have to decide, we can make an informed decision. And oh, by the way, to Rob Eirich's question, the district health departments are going to get to help us make this decision. So this is not just our uninformed decision, us doing whatever we want to do. This will be a very, very carefully thought through, informed decision, hopefully in partnership with our ag societies, fair boards, and 4-H councils. So now what really matters is our relationship with those folks is more important than ever. So I think the thing that I just want you to be cautious about, I would not react to this letter. We are not going to react to this letter. We're not going to respond to this letter. That's Ronnie Green's prerogative. One of the things that we are going to do later today is a press release that will go statewide that says basically this: Nebraska is the #1 state in 4-H participation in the United States. We are very, very proud of that. That happens because parents, volunteers, and partners, in coordination with Nebraska Extension, develop and deliver great 4-H experiences for youth. and that we are committed to delivering a robust, high-quality 4-H experience this summer at the county fair and in other venues, either via an in-person or a virtual 4-H experience. So I'd like it, we will share those talking points with you, but we would like you to use those talking points because, you know, first of all, the message is we build on our strengths, which is this amazingly robust 4-H family that we have across this state. We're going to do everything that we can to support our 4-H youth, our volunteers, our parents, our partners in the process. We're also going to do what's right to protect the health and well-being of our 4-H youth, our families, our employees, etc. So hopefully this message resonates with people. I know it's not going to resonate with everybody. There are still people out there who think that COVID-19 is a hoax, that somehow it's been made up. We now have over 100,000 people in the United States who have died from COVID-19. It's not a hoax, and we know that. The incidence is much less in our really rural counties. That's to their huge advantage. So that opens some doors for us in terms of what we might do, what we might be involved in. So that's where we would like you to consider being, the kind of messaging, the kind of engaging question. Do we have permission to go to in-person Ag Society meetings when they only meet in person before June 15th? We'll take a look at that. I think there are perhaps some of those kinds of things that we would consider to be essential activities. So we'll take a look at that. Obviously, if you go, you must wear a mask. You must practice good hand sanitation. You must do whatever you can do to protect yourself. So I think those are, you know, if we in fact are able to allow that, that you absolutely have to take care of yourself. But that may be, you know, the only way that you have an opportunity to have this genuine conversation and to try to connect with people in a way that really matters. And some meet by Zoom, which is great. Oh, so the message just came from the chancellor about opening campus in June. I haven't read that yet. We'll all have a chance to read that. Thanks, Kathleen. Comments or reactions? Yeah, so a question about, so we've talked about three data points. One is the incidence of COVID-19 in a county. Another one is the directed health measures, either statewide or district health department by district health department. And then the third one is the status of the county courthouse. And we know that there are county courthouses in Nebraska who have remained wide open through this entire scenario. And I'm not passing any judgment. That's their choice, and I respect that. What we are doing, we are creating this map, color-coded: green, authorized to re-enter; yellow, getting close but not quite; and red, not yet, and maybe not in the near future. The point that I want to make is, to get a green rating, we're going to have a positive signal from all three of those sources. So the COVID-19 incidence has dropped. The district health department authorizes people to go back to work using safe health protocols, and that the county courthouse guidelines are allowable as well. If any one of those is a no, then the county probably is not going to be green. So I think that's our plan, is to really triangulate those three data sources and consider all three of those data sources before we would color code a county green. You know, I recognize that if your county courthouse and your county government is wanting to be open to the public, wide open to the public, and we're not there, that is potentially problematic for you in terms of relationships and potentially communication. And I feel bad about that, but and so if a county isn't green, should an in-person 4-H event at a county fair happen? That's going to be the tough one, right? We've already heard that there may be 2 counties. Both counties are pretty dark red on that incidence map, who have said that they are going to have their county fair in person, just like they always have. We are trying to figure out how we respond in that case, because the COVID-19 incidence map would suggest that there's, in no way should there be a gathering, and the statewide directed health measures that don't, they expire May 31st. Will they be reissued? We don't know. But right now that says no gatherings beyond 10 people. So I don't know how you have a traditional county fair without a gathering of more than 10 people. So the point is that it's a moving target, right? And so we're gonna have to try and figure this out. But yeah, if a county isn't green, they are determined to have a in-person county fair. We're gonna have to figure out how to navigate that.
I would say that could be the case for us. And one of those counties is red currently, and one of those is the lighter orange.
Yeah.
But based on discussion last night, that's the leaning of the board.
Yes.
They're going to reevaluate in a month, but that's where they're leaning.
Yep. And Jennifer, part of that we think will be moderated by the governor's guidelines when they come out. They will help these folks perhaps make a different decision. But we don't know yet. We don't know exactly how far that's going to go.
I hope so. That's the hope. But last night their response was, well, we can do what we want. So we'll see about that, because the One Health Department's already advised us that it might not be in our best interest, and they would recommend against it. So we're already kind of fighting some misinformation with them.
Yes. Yes. And I think we're going to have that problem across this state. People have opinions. People have beliefs about COVID-19 that aren't going to necessarily align with the science. We're going to try to stand on the science. That's our commitment. Dave, you were going to jump in?
I was just going to mention, it goes without saying, but the counties that are green next week could be red in the next week, right? So
Sure.
It's a fluid situation. So once we decide to open an office, it could have to close again, right, for a period of time. So just be thinking about that, be ready for that type of situation. And if you'd help just communicate that to your staff, your extension board, your volunteers, 4-H council, just so they're aware that it's fluid, and as Chuck and Kathleen have described, these are how we're going to make our decisions as we move forward.
And Dave, to add to those really important points, bringing Shelley Schwedhelm from the Med Center into this conversation, I think there's a lot of respect from people across this state for our Med Center and the work that they do. Hopefully that gives us some additional credibility in these conversations as we go forward. So I think that is our commitment, is to stick to the science. Hopefully our district health departments are willing to help us in that regard. I realize that they are local, and to some extent they could be influenced by local opinions and local people. Hopefully they're sticking to the science as well. But this is going to be tricky for some of us. And I think Kathleen made the right point just a minute ago in the chat. We shouldn't be taking sides. This is not about sides. This is about the facts. This is about how we apply the facts to make informed decisions. So I know we're running long. If you need to go, I respect that, but we'll hang on until you feel like you've either posted in the chat questions or concerns. We may not be able to get to all of those, but if you have additional things that you'd like to talk about, we'll hold on here for a while.
Chuck, this is Jay. I was just going to make one additional comment to the facts. And even beyond that is because so much is unknown, we believe that erring on the side of caution is definitely the right thing to do.
Yep. Agreed. Anything else for today? Yeah, so what kind of masks? So what Shelley actually recommended are those kind of medical style masks. They're flat, they're kind of pleated, that those are the preferred. If that's not economically available to you, then the cloth masks are acceptable. Keep in mind, the reason we wear masks is to keep us from spreading the disease to others. It does provide us some marginal protection from others who might have the disease, but it's really for us to protect others. Even those dust masks that you can buy at Home Depot or Walmart, those are better than nothing. So, but I think that would kind of be the order. We would encourage you not to buy N95 masks at this point. Those are really reserved for the healthcare profession. And so we'd ask you not to go there. But that stepwise progression, the pleated medical style masks, then to the cloth masks, and then to the dust masks. And the thing about the cloth masks, those should be laundered or hit them with a hot hair dryer after every use. Shelley did tell us yesterday that those medical style masks, that you can wear those for a day. So it's not just one time use. You can wear it for a day and then dispose of it and then put on a new one the next day. So even during that day, you can put it on and take it off. If you're in an office with a closed door, you can take it off. But she also said, and this is the thing that we all have to kind of get used to in practice, is when you take it off, grab it by the edges, preferably the inside edges, lay it down face first on a paper towel. When you put it back on, pick it up by those inside edges, put it back on, not touching the front, because what happens if you touch the front, you could pick up the virus. And then the next thing you know, you're touching your glasses, and then touching your glasses and touching your ear. And the point is, you get the point. So just some fairly simple best practices. If you wear gloves, when you get done, you don't pull them off by the fingertips. You reach inside the glove, grab the inside of the glove, pull it inside out, throw it in the trash. These are just, I mean, if you're a nurse, you know these things. If you're not, I've learned these things in the last month from my daughter, who's a respiratory therapist, who says, "Dad, you got to get it right." And I'm trying. Teach me, please teach me. Yeah, Dave in the chat, Shelley did advise us the biggest challenge is training individuals to wear a mask correctly. In other words, it should cover your nose and mouth. How many people have you seen with it across their mouth and their nose is sticking out? Well, that doesn't help. Anything else, folks? Yeah, a public site with videos. Yeah, for families, great. Yes. Yes, we are going to provide these guidelines in writing. You know, one of the things that we struggle a little bit with is there is so much detail that we could communicate. As the detail gets longer and longer, more pages, how many people are going to read it front to back? I always worry about that. So we're going to try and be concise, but we also want to be complete. And so if the guidance is more than a page, please understand what we're trying to accomplish there. Thank you, Brandy.
They're eating the poppy seed kolache too. That's their dinner.
I love it. So Brandy and I have had this conversation several times about how much I enjoy when you bring your family to work. And Randy's daughter was on a Zoom here not too long ago, and I called her out by name, and she said, "How do you know my name?" Well, Mom called you by your name, dear, so I figured that out.
Yes, she heard it.
Good to see you again.
Stop it.
They only embarrass you in public, right, Brandy?
Yeah, right.
Anything else for today, folks? Yeah, send your address to Brandy if you want a treat. Just kidding. All right. Thank you, everybody. We've laid some tough stuff on you today. You know, we've asked you to do some things that may be uncomfortable for you, and we understand that. At the same time, you know, our commitment to Nebraskans is real, and we can do this. I think as you get more guidance on what Shelley is helping us understand, as I mentioned earlier, that gave me a lot of confidence that if we do this well, that we will be protected to the best of our ability. Probably not 100%, but a lot better than if we ignore those guidelines. So let's stay strong, let's stay committed, let's stay smart. And above all, everyone, please take care of yourself. I hope you enjoy a 3-day Memorial Day weekend. We're going to the lake, the boat's gonna hit the water. Whatever you do on Memorial Day weekend, please enjoy it. Enjoy your time together with your family, enjoy the outdoors, et cetera, et cetera. But please take care of yourself, everybody. Anything else, Dave?
Oh, thanks everyone.
Take care.